Now, ask Dr. Love with psychotherapist, author, love and relationship expert Dr. Jamie Turndorf. For expert advice on love and relationships, you can submit your questions online at AskDrLove.com or post comments and questions to Dr. Love while you're watching live over Google Hangouts or YouTube. Now, here's Dr. Love.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and it is my pleasure to be with you today, and I'm so excited to have my special guest, Hendrix, Dr. Harville Hendrix, and Helen LaKelly Hunt. They're co-creators of Imago Relationship Therapy and Theory, and they vision a shift in the value system of our culture from the primacy of the individual to the primacy of relationship. And their mission is to implement that vision by disseminating new science-based relationship theory and skills that create joyful, thriving relationships. And they believe that safe conversation, and that's in caps because it's their terminology, safe conversation is the core characteristic of healthy relationships, which in turn are essential for a healthy society. And so they have seeded a citywide initiative to distribute safe conversations throughout Dallas, Texas, as a first step towards this global movement. And they are 3 New York Times bestsellers, and their bestsellers include Getting the Love You Want, and they have 10 books that they produced together in their 32-year partnership. Dr. Hendrix was featured on Oprah 18 times, and Dr. Hunt is an honored inductee into the National Women's Hall of Fame. So hello and welcome to Ask Dr. Love.
Thank you, Dr. Love, and we're glad to be here.
A delight. I always love to talk to you both, and you practice what you preach, because I spent some time with you a few weeks ago when we did that video series for Your Tango, and I watched how the two of you interact with each other, and you practice what you preach in safe conversation and holding each other in a very loving way.
Thank you.
I see it. Dr. Love gave you the gold star. And is this a new thing for you guys? Dr. Love, okay, we can quit now. Fine.
Right, that's my first gold star. So
yeah, I got
you.
a gold star in safe conversation. But I just felt the love that was just flowing from the two of you. And, the thing is, love, people don't realize it's an action verb.
Yeah.
You practice love. It is an action. It's a verb. And I saw you practicing love with each other.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I agree with this. It's a verb.
It's
not
a verb.
Noun. Yeah.
Not a noun. It's an action verb. So we were talking today about marriage and the space between. So what do you both mean by the space between?
When I met Harville about 7 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we dated for 5 years before we married. But he was beginning to talk about what he'd like to do with his life, and I had been reading Martin Buber, and in the early years of discussion, it's the Jewish mystic Buber who identified that two people have a between that's between them, and that between has energy fields in it, and that when two people can ever shift to treating each other respectfully and graciously and lovingly, shift away from treating each other like objects to meet their own needs, but rather shift to being servants to each other, mutual honoring to each other, that two people become conduits of a universal energy, and some sort of energy field begins to flow from somewhere into the couple and then into the between, the space between them. And it's
beautiful.
It's a beautiful concept, and so Harville and I have really understood that a relationship is not two people only. It's two people in the space between them, and one person needs to be conscious of X, and their partner needs to be conscious of Y, but then both of them also need to be conscious of the space between them and co-create the space between them that they want it to be.
That's so fascinating, because the thing is the space between the image of the conduit, because I always say that, it's as if the relationship is a living, breathing entity unto itself, and that there's actually a third presence in the relationship, and that presence is God, Spirit, Yahweh. And you're describing something very similar as this space between being an open channel or conduit to Spirit, to God, which is love.
Yeah, and I think, wasn't it Helen Buber who said that when that happened, God shows up in the space between? And he also goes on to say that God cannot show up in any other space.
Yes.
That there's a kind of the space between is the conduit of universal love, but it's also the place where God shows up. Because it's a relational, an essentially relational component to love.
Yes, and if you think about in the healthiest love relationships, you're really honoring the relationship as a divine entity to be preserved and protected, and the other is you're serving the other and the relationship, and that's above. It takes supremacy over your small little self.
Right. Yeah, and that's what we've grown to language it that way. It used to be long ago when we were working out of what we call the paradigm of the individual model. It was two people trying to make something happen, and they were building a relationship. So that now we language it, and it's not that we have a relationship. We finally created one. With Helen bringing the concept from Buber, which she did that years ago when we were first beginning this. I mean, none of this would have happened without Helen's intuitive genius. Brought that concept into our conversation. We move from having a relationship to we are a relationship. It's not like we have one and we need to take care of it. We are a relationship. We can't be anything else. Relating is what is. And
Helen, don't you just love the way he acknowledges you?
He is, yes, I do.
Well, it's
so
just
wonderful in this way. His humility and his because the best of men and the best of husbands do what he just did for you. It isn't about, he just gives it to you, He
does.
Well, thank you for the humility. I'm really proud of my humility.
And I do think that he is the best of men. So.
He is.
My goodness.
Yeah, he's modeling what what ideally men become, moving out of the patriarchal age.
Yeah.
All men were really trained to be different, like Harville's counterintuitive, and we think the whole culture, we know how to be individuals and fit a role, but the current roles for people don't work for relationships. They don't work for not only their relationships at home, but world peace. Something's not working with the focus on patriarchy and individuals
and domination and supremacy and all of these, male gender role driven. Yes. I just love it because when I meet a man like Harville who just did what he did with you, my heart sings because my husband was exactly the same way, and he was always so very humble. And, he was a Jesuit priest, so they beat humility into them. It was part of Ignatius of Loyola's training in the Jesuit order, and because they believe that humility is really a pathway into spirituality. You have to humble yourself. So it's really, if you think about it, when Harville is so humble before you, it's as if he's really worshiping you. It's like,
And a man like that deserves that going back to them, and that's the concept Buber had that's if one can start it, but if it really then needs to be two-way. So My job is to follow the modeling of Harville being so humble.
Well,
I love that because you reap what you sow and you return the gift to him. And that is a concept a lot of people in relationships don't understand, that you reap what you sow. And if you give back the same gift, then you're both being fed. And then the relationship is being fed. People don't get that very often. Have you noticed?
Well, yeah, and what they also don't get the other side of that you reap what you sow is that if you put negative energy into the relationship and you're not respectful of each other, that you then create a toxic, we're using the word now, the ecosystem, the relationship is an ecosystem. You create a toxic ecosystem, which means that you live in an environment that will have negative consequences for your body, your longevity, your health,
all of this.
All of that is a function of the quality of betweenness.
And you have the power, like a pebble in the pond. This is what I call the love revolution, because you have the power to cast that pebble into the pond. And with that simple little act, you forever change the surface of the pond. You can.
That's a lovely image.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm glad you approve, because I respect and admire you both so much. And so that's, to me, the image of first changing the climate, the ecosystem of your relationship, and then the world. It just reverberates out to the larger pool,
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I like that image of the pond, because when you throw it in, there's the waves go all the way through the whole pond.
Yes. And people don't realize, they'll stand on ceremony. Well, I'm not going to be nice to you because you treated me like crap. But if you just change what you're doing, you completely break the whole cycle of the putrid, the putrid pond.
Yeah.
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 So, and I remember listening to the two of you talk. Helen, you were so very vulnerable and real when I listened to you speak about how you guys weren't always this evolved, and that you made the conscious decision to change the way you both were dealing with your needs and the negative feelings. Do you talk freely about that on the radio?
Well, we do, because it was so horrific going through our failure to have a healthy relationship. It was just so painful, and there was really a lot of shame involved on my part, about it. And I can't speak for Harville, but the fact that it could be hopeful to someone else, it then motivates, because it was awful. The thing we for so long kept as our biggest secret, when we just began to break down, keeping it a secret. It really is true that any couple, we believe that any couple can turn their relationship around, because ours was so bad that once we decided to go for therapy, we tried the top therapist in New York, and when that didn't work, we tried the second top therapist in New York, and but we fired them because they, like the first one, and we had read their books and we knew what they were going to say. So then we went to the third top therapist and we fired that person, and after 4 sessions, and the fifth therapist we went to fired us after some sessions, and they said we were the couple from hell. And so people who listen to your show hear us talk about the power and the beauty of love if you really work at it, what you reap, and they might think, oh, that's easy for them to say, but no,
but you're really walking the walk. That's what you're saying. And the thing is, I find I get a lot of people coming to me and they're worse off after couples therapy, because the therapist doesn't have the concept in mind of you're not allowed to just say whatever you think and feel. Take turns beating the crap out of each other. Here, I'm handing you the club. And I'll never forget a couple coming in doing this, taking turns. They'd been in therapy, and I said, listen, if you're going to beat the crap out of each other, go home and do it for free. Because in my office, you're not going to do that. And where did you even get the idea that you're allowed to disrespect each other this way? And the both of them blinked like I'd thrown cold water on their faces. And they said, nobody ever told us before. And that was it. From that point on, I never saw them again. And a few years later, they were walking in the jewelry district in the city, and they walked up to me and they said, you remember us? You read us the riot act about how we were disrespecting each other and that it wasn't allowed? Well, we stopped, and we've been happy ever since.
Surprise!
That was the end of that therapy. I have to take a brief break, but I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love.
Dr. Love's Quickies.
Wondering how to tell the difference between love and lust? Poor Mark. Every time he takes a woman to bed, he ends up scratching his head. His big head, I mean. How can he tell if he's in love or only in lust? Time. Lust usually fades in a few weeks while true love lasts. So when it comes to gauging if you're in love or only in lust, remember you can't trust lust. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of AskDrLove.com.
You are listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Ask Dr. Love is the web's premier relationship advice site since 1996. Visit AskDrLove.com to search thousands of free relationship advice articles on any relationship issue you may have, or submit a question to her free advice column. You can also watch this broadcast live over Google Hangouts or YouTube. Sign up for her newsletter at AskDrLove.com to be the first to know about her upcoming radio shows. And find out how you can watch her live and ask her questions in real time. Don't be shy. Dr. Turndorf wants to help you, so take advantage of this unique opportunity to get a personal answer from one of today's most respected experts. This show is for you, the listeners, so if you have a question for her, make sure to watch live on Tuesdays from 1 to 2 Eastern Time on Google Hangouts or YouTube, or catch the archived broadcast on webtalkradio.net. Now, back to Dr. Love.
You're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and I'm talking with the legendary Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt. So, you guys, this is the time in the show I call Dr. Love's Quickie segment because it's really short and sweet. We got to get in and out in 6 minutes. So, one of the things that I thought would be really neat to do is to speak a little bit about this concept I heard you discussing when we did the Your Tango series. You talked about the fact that when surveyed, couples reveal that they're actually afraid to be connected, intimate, and loving, that they are terrified of it, and therefore they engage in all kinds of operations to actually create space, to pick fights in order to create space. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how people can get past the terror?
Oh, yes. It's one of those counterintuitive and paradoxical realities that, and in fact, Sigmund Freud discovered this also in the 19th century, that people fear what they desire the most. And so for a long time, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But when I got deeply embedded in couples therapy, Helen and I were processing the fact that couples get to a point in therapy where they seem to have, understood each other better. They are having safer conversations, and they are experiencing a little decrease in their defenses, and they're moving what we would call toward, connection, intimacy. And at the point that they're almost to the point where they can touch each other, where they can truly connect, they have a big explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And so this would happen over and over again. And it was like, well, when it first started happening, it was, what's wrong with the therapy? What did I miss? And so finally, as we've learned everything from interviewing couples, so all of Imago theory and therapy basically has to do with constructing a system out of couples' feedback about what the experience of being with each other is and what really helps them. And so what we learned in the interviewing is that they became aware as they got closer to each other, they became more anxious. And finally, we found out what the anxiety was about. And the anxiety was that if they got close, became intimate, that then they would lose that state of being, and that it would be it's so painful to lose it that they create barriers to getting it so that they don't experience the pain of losing it.
That is so well explained. It's like I'm going to die by my own sword. I would rather break this connection through my own operation than suffer the pain of having it ripped from me, and I don't know when the knife is going to strike, and I'm out of control. So this way I'll ruin it myself.
That's right. If I don't get close, I can't fail.
Yep. And the pain, it's like falling from grace.
Yes. Yeah. And the piece that was really interesting is that some couples who would achieve that, crossing that barrier and experience it for a while, felt that then when it was broken, it felt so much worse than living for years without being connected. Like if you taste it and you feel it, it's something we think it's what we are. Connecting is what we are, and that intimacy is one of the other words about that. When you're intimate, you're experiencing relating without barriers, relating without your defenses. You're being vulnerable and open. And when people taste that, they're tasting the nectar of their own being. They're tasting what we are. And then when you lose it, if you've had it a while, you lose it. It is so painful because you've actually lost not only the that experience, you've lost something of yourself. You've lost the contact with being, and that's really
like the paradise of the connection, the paradise of connecting with yourself. Paradise lost. It's like falling from the highest mountain. So painful. So
that's a good image. You get thrown out.
Falling from the highest mountain. It's a real flat. But if I'm already down, with my belly crawling in the dirt, I don't have to fall far.
Exactly. The contrast is not very much then. But when you've had the ecstasy of being and you lose that, contrast is so dramatic that it's almost like you're going to die.
And I often think, I'm sure you probably both would agree with this, that we've had earlier experiences of paradise lost. I mean, not just the womb being taken, but then, failures in the parenting where we felt connected and then it was inadequate parenting and I lost it. So we're even harking back to earlier tremendous disappointments when we are so afraid to be close and loving and intimate and having it ripped from us.
Yeah. I think that Helen and I have now begun to connect early childhood experience before the fall. Most babies, as Keats said, come into the world trailing clouds of glory, and then they get parents who, in some sense, rupture that connection.
There it is.
And then the babies want it again, and the next time it tends to show up, Helen and I have discovered in our research, is that we've finally been able to relate the romantic experience to the early childhood ecstasy with the caretakers before the caretakers blew.
Absolutely. And let me just take a brief break, and then we're going to pick up on that point. I'll be back with you in one moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio.
You are listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. If you yearn to get along better with your life partner or spouse, friends, family members, and even coworkers, Dr. Love's latest Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 simple steps to cooling conflict and rekindling your relationship, shows you how to turn conflict into connection for a lifetime of lasting love. Find out more about this book and even read a free excerpt by visiting AskDrLove.com. This is Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. And if you have a question for her, make sure to watch live over Google Hangouts or YouTube, where you can submit your comments or questions and connect with Dr. Love in real time. Or listen to the archived show at webtalkradio.net. This show is for you, the listeners, and Dr. Love wants to hear from you. You're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Once again, here's Dr. Love.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. I'm talking with the legendary, marvelous, wonderful Dr. Harville, Hendrix, and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt. So before we took the break, we started talking about the idea that the relationship, the romantic relationship, rekindles for us on an unconscious level the original relationship with our primary caretakers. And so when our partners and our spouses, our lovers, disappoint us and fail to be responsive in the way we need, we go into a state of regression where we're literally writhing in the pain that we suffered as a kid when our parent let us down.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what my work is all about, is to help couples be conscious of that so that then they can have a conscious, loving conversation about, wow, when this was said or done, it reminded me of X, Y, and Z when I was young. So now you transform your partner into ally instead of enemy, as opposed to what most couples do, which is, now I'm going to aim my cannons at you and blast you with all the rage that I felt toward my parent and, of course, destroy the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fascinating thing about that is we finally ask couples, how come you do those nasty things to each other? And the response was surprisingly, almost unconsciously, so that he will become loving, so that he will get it, that I feel, alone, and I'm going to really beat him up until he gets it, and then he'll start loving me, not knowing that the reverse will be true, because we now know the psychoneural system is designed in such a way that when you experience pain, you become avoidant.
Human nature. I hit you with a blowtorch, but I'm going to feel loving toward you? Hello? That's not going to work.
Now, Dr. Love, I actually think that couple that was in your office taking turns beating each other up deserves some credit because they were taking turns. So, but their motive was, if I can say it loudly enough, if I can make an impact that's strong enough, they will then get it that they need to turn around and love me. So at least they were taking turns. So
they just haven't learned how to speak in a way that the other can hear. It's sort of like when a baby is upset, and throws a fit, and I'm going to take my marbles and I'm going to go home, and if I scream and yell, like an attachment behavior, you'll pay attention and you'll pick me up.
But we now know what works is for people to become attuned to each other. And that's what the dialogue process allows. First, they take turns talking, but not just talking. Then when they validate and empathize, it really invites couples to grow attuned to each other in their facial expressions, not just attuned in the words by mirroring, but attuned with, eye contact in terms of, that makes sense from your point of view. That makes sense, and I can imagine you're feeling so-and-so. Suddenly, your childhood experience that you've overlaid onto your partner, suddenly your partners become the good parent through practicing attunement.
But what's very important in this, and I'm sure you both agree, is for you to help your partner be the good parent who gives you the right experience, you must speak in that safe way. You cannot speak in an attacking or heated way, because then you're driving the partner away, and then you're getting another abandonment and another re-injury.
And often couples can't help themselves. They go, I can't help it, and in a way it's true if their lower brain has gotten inflamed by something their partner said. And that, again, is what's so helpful about the dialogue process. It's imago, but then others have other kinds of ways to structure talking, but it gives you a structure, a technology, words that you're supposed to say, whether you mean them or not, like, taking the time to try to mirror. And so that technology sure helps them into that safe conversation.
And if you're too upset to even rein in that primitive, brain, well, if you can go into action and verbally club the person, you could go into action and walk into the bathroom and just put some water on your face, calm down a little, so then you can come back and use your safe conversation and mirroring and validating.
Yeah. Take a time out.
Yes. You're already out of control and you're in a state of motion, which is part of the primitive brain, and, I'm ready to fight you and club you with my words, but you can go into action and walk the other way and take a time out, come back, and then be able to engage in the safe conversation you're talking about, and helping your partner to help you. It's wonderful. And do you guys get into this even now? I mean, you're so experienced in the safe conversation. Do you find that now you don't even have to fight anymore? There are no fights?
Well, I think we would both say that there are, I don't know if we call them fights, but there are certainly
I mean,
what we would call a rupture.
Once or twice a month, maybe something happens, but we've really, and you said, "Is this new?" At the one of your first sentences to us in terms of being a. You said, "Is this new?" And yeah, it sort of is. But then there again, it's never too late. But over the last years, the last 15 years, every year gets better, and we can just traverse waters that we were never able to traverse before, seeking to be curious about each other and wondering why our partner said what they did before we then turn around and judge it.
Yeah,
I love it. Helen, this is what I really love about you is your humility, because I love the way you describe yourself as, I'm a work in progress. I'm getting better every year. I'm doing better and better. But the humility that you bring to the process, that if you, who is, along with Harville, are the top respected relationship theorists and experts, for you to be humble enough to say, we're working on it, we're getting better, it's so inspiring for everybody else,
Yeah.
Right.
It's really great.
And I think the thing to add to this, which I thought you were going to say, Helen, so is it okay if I talk about the repair process? That I think that the answer is that we certainly are doing better, and we have an ex-client. Well, actually, they're not an ex-client. They keep showing up at the workshop about every year. So and they stay on email with us. It's a couple that's very interesting and very thoughtful about their relationship. So they provided us with a year-long journal of their using safe conversation and zero negativity in their relationship. Mm-hmm. So he wrote the other day and he said, we still find that we've practiced now for a year or so, and we still have relational ruptures. And so we decided that we're going to say we have a wonderful relationship, but it's not perfect. And that way we don't hold ourselves to an impossible standard. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we have learned and that they learned in the workshops is that what's important about a rupture in connection is the immediacy of repair. that it's not so, there's some old cliches about it's not that you fall down, but do you get up again?
Yep.
And there's this sort of thing. And the reason that we working now on immediate repair, this is something that John Gottman in his research also discovered, that healthy couples, they have breakdowns, but they repair immediately. And we found that to be true in the clinical side. And the reason that it's important is like when you fall off a horse, to use an old analogy, the instructions that, our parents not quite knowing why they were doing it would say, well, get back up and get back on the horse immediately. But what they knew was you have what we now know as muscle and memory freeze. You have a muscle freeze if you hurt yourself. You also have a memory freeze. And if you don't repair that thing, whether it was an emotional injury from a transaction with your partner, like the physical one in getting up on a horse, then that memory of the rupture and the pain of that will get frozen in the hippocampus. That is, they'll become a part of the memory system, so that then the partner becomes an object of fear, because if you go near them or with them, you get hurt unless you protect yourself. So the important thing is not that you had a rupture, but did you repair it in the next 3 to 5 minutes?
I love that. Love that. And it's so important.
Then go to the room and take a time out and come back and repair it quickly, so that you don't have memory freeze. And that's
right.
really important.
And I use the image of like psychic scar tissue. If you don't do immediate rehabilitation, you build scar tissue. And scar tissue is very difficult. I mean, it causes constrictions, strictures, and then you form new negative patterns.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
just overlay with that.
Relationship first aid immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
We fall down, but we get up. and we take responsibility. That's how, I mean, the form of the first aid is I take responsibility for what I said or did. That's how you would call fixing it and making up, right?
Right. And I think one of my motivations for working hard to repair and also working hard to not rupture, but to be negativity free, is I finally got from my academic understanding of this to an emotional understanding that what I do to Helen is going to produce an emotional memory in her mind. And so I have to decide what Harville do I want in Helen's mind.
Aw.
And if I am beat on her to say, I want you to love me, then the paradox is that the person in her mind, when she thinks about me, will be the person who hurt her.
Yeah.
But,
and you don't want that. You want her to see you as the humble.
I want her, when she
beautiful,
sees
loving man.
Wow, there he is. And for her mind to be full of memories of when I was kind and warm and loving and caring. And it really hurts me when I lose my, I flip my lid sometimes, as Dan Siegel says, flip my lid, and for whatever reason, rupture our connection, because now I know that there's another memory in her mind that is going to show up ahead of all the other memories, because the painful memories are more energized and they show up first, because the brain is its default mechanism is the negative.
Right, so it's survival based. I've got to remember the negative thing. That's what kept me alive when I was a caveman.
What kept me alive.
Right. So we have to say, I always say this because I have these little tweets that I put out. Whatever you say and do boomerangs back on you.
Oh.
And while it may feel good in the moment to get your rocks off, on the rocks is where your relationship is going to end up.
You are amazing.
I love to make times. So, Helen,
if we ever have another problem, we're going to come to see you.
I think you guys are my poster children for the ideal marriage. I just love you.
Dr. Love, there's a way we are in sync, because a couple of years ago I asked Harville if I could produce an Imago book, and he said, why? And I said, because you're so funny and everyone thinks you're the person on Oprah. And yes, you're scholarly, but in your workshops, you're so funny. And and then when Harville gets funny, I get funny. And,
right.
And we're like you. We do. And you bring humor. And as we wrote this book, it's got cartoons, it's lighthearted, and it's so much easier to work on the challenges of a relationship if there's some lighthearted things. So we really appreciate it.
Right, because the chemicals associated with humor are incompatible with the chemicals associated with anger and negativity. So that's why I always bring humor into the work. And you guys, that's why I think we clicked right away, because Harville, I don't know if you know this, Helen, when Harville met me and I started telling him my story about Jean, reconnecting with his spirit, Harville looked at me with a total straight face, and he said, "You're very strange." I knew he was ragging on me. I knew he was goofing on me. And I just paused, and I looked at him, and I said, I get it. You're a little imp. Very playful. So let me take a break, and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio.
Dr. Love's Quickies.
Mary's about ready to give love the shove, because no matter what she tries, men don't know that she's alive. To turn guys on, Mary needs to turn on what I call green lights, nonverbal signals that let a guy know you're ready to go. Most guys won't approach a woman unless they're sure to not be rejected. So ladies, if you want to kick your love life into high gear, make your signals clear. Turn on those green lights and flash your pearly whites. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of AskDrLove.com.
You are listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. To submit your questions to Dr. Turndorf live on the air, sign up for her free newsletter at AskDrLove.com and get the details on how you can connect with her on Google Hangouts or YouTube during her live broadcasts, or listen to the archived show at webtalkradio.net. If you've recently been through a breakup and are looking for a second chance, wondering how you can reconcile with your ex, or if it's even possible after all you've been through, Dr. Love's book, Make Up, Don't Break Up, presents her proven 5-step plan for reconciling with your ex. This plan was developed over years of research, working with thousands of couples at her Center for Emotional Communication. This is a proven, no-hype, no-nonsense method that gets right to the root of the problem and shows you how to reignite the spark and rekindle your love. For more about Make Up, Don't Break Up, visit AskDrLove.com. And now, back to Dr. Love.
Get it on, 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 yeah.
You're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. If you or someone you know has lost a loved one, my new Hay House book, Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased, presents my groundbreaking new transdimensional grief therapy method, which offers the first vehicle in history for reconnecting and making peace with the deceased. For a limited time, when you purchase Love Never Dies, you will automatically be entered into my love sweepstakes. Visit AskDrLove.com for more details. Now, here I'm going to share with you my second Dr. Love's Quickies that's being syndicated all over America. This one's How Going Green Can Help Your Love Life. Mary's about ready to give love the shove, because no matter what she tries, men don't know that she's alive. To turn guys on, Mary needs to turn on what I call green lights, nonverbal signals that let a guy know you're ready to go. Most guys won't approach a woman unless they're sure to not be rejected. So ladies, if you want to kick your love life into high gear, make your signals clear. Turn on those green lights and flash your pearly whites. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of AskDrLove.com. And now back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and I'm talking with Dr. Harville Hendrix and Helen LaKelly Hunt. Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt, they're both co-creators of Imago Relationship Theory and Therapy, and we're talking about the space between. So, gosh, I could talk to you guys forever. That's the deal, you know?
Okay.
And that is, I'm like a kid. I'm just having so much fun with you. So,
Same
humor. You guys get each other laughing every day?
Well, we actually do engage in making it. We actually do engage in producing laughter every day.
Because if we haven't during the day, we watch something funny on TV at night, like late night humor shows, or we actually, that used to be my favorite time to tell Harville how he could improve himself. When no one was on the phone, no one was ringing, and
that was shape up Harville
the kids
time.
were asleep, and right before going to bed, I would he's captive, and I can point out ways he can be a better person. And for some reason, that didn't work, and so we've now substituted it with real relaxation together and joy, and we give each other 3 appreciations before going to sleep, and we love, and may do readings sometimes of this lifetime and sometimes the next lifetime, or things that are wondrous, and
I think we also have a kind of a light kidding of each other. We have more kind of spontaneous turns of phrase and stuff like that, which you have when you're feeling safe. You can't do that. You can't play like that if you're scared. And so I think that the degree of our own healing as a couple has been increased in spontaneous.
Yes, absolutely right. And of course, also, if you're very angry at each other, you can't be very playful too. So the more you're goofing around, it's like a litmus test for how well you're doing. Yeah.
What we learned after reading all the sophisticated relationship books there were in the culture and writing a couple, what we learned is that it doesn't take sophisticated theory to have a great relationship, but it's about developing healthy habits and intentionally putting some humor into your day, which is why we TiVo things at night that will bring humor and joy as we go to sleep. It's really not that hard to turn it around. It does take daily practice, but if you practice a few things every day, you can just skip over all that childhood theory and all over the complexity of the unconscious and everything.
Yeah. And you know, like if you bow, you feel reverent. If you smile, you feel happy. If you behave lovingly, well, guess what? You feel loving. You just break the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, people don't realize a relationship is like a car. You know, we don't take our cars for granted. We change the filters on the car. If you ignore a car, it's going to end up dead in a ditch. Well, our relationships are the same, right? And people don't think I have to do daily maintenance of my relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I really am sympathetic with that because I know sometimes I'm aware we're doing this all the time. And it's like, how come this thing couldn't just run by itself, you know, with infinite energy, and I could ride in it without having to steer it. And it's just childhood reality, I think, of, you know, I think that fantasy comes from childhood where children are at home and parents are doing everything, and you don't have to do much until you get a little older, when the parents say, hey, you're part of this family, and you need to help the family be the family.
Do some chores, you know?
Do some chores, yes.
Yeah.
You're in charge.
That's true. Now, I want to bring something else up, which I know is not very PC, but I do talk about this a lot, and I love to hear your take on this. You know, the gender roles do have a big impact on our relationships. And so often women are raised to be emotionally expressive and emotive, to scream, to yell. So when their needs are not being met, very often I have seen trouble erupt because women have not learned how to, instead of nagging, whining, and complaining, I call that the three Scrooges fight trap. When they're not getting what they want, women have not been socialized to just speak more like a man, be more instrumental and task-oriented, and just say what I want, rather than nagging at you, complaining and bashing you when you don't do what I want. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think Helen started to speak. Shall I go ahead, or you want to
Either way.
do that? Well, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I'll first say we tend not to gender a relationship because there really are many couples where it's the man that suffers from they suffer from being able to contain their feelings, but to the extent that it, you know, generally speaking, what you're saying is accurate, and it is a very empowering thing to learn to be contained and succinct. And you think you're subtracting from yourself because it means you're going to take up less space. But it's a very empowering thing. Actually, you think, oh gosh, you know, I'm so frustrated, and he deserves to know how frustrated I am because he's contributed to my frustration. And so somehow we have a contorted thinking that it's helpful for both your partner and yourself, but you suffer so much. Your lower brain doesn't know if you're escalating because at your partner or escalating at yourself. Like your lower brain doesn't determine the difference between other, you know, that kind of distinction. And all those neurochemicals are getting dumped into your body. And as you say, the neurochemistry of humor is, you know, cannot coexist with the neurochemical of anger. So
yes, so loved your answer, and it was very succinct too. So
thank you.
Tell me your favorite imago exercise. I know everybody would love to hear this.
Well, I think that the ones that we most often do are the appreciations.
And the zero negativity. And I think just charting, learning, you know.
Yeah, we do 3 appreciations a day, and then the zero negativity. I think that is the favorite because that's the one where we really regulate the environment of the ecosystem of our relationship, so that it doesn't have toxic energy in it. And we call it the zero negativity pledge. And what that means is that we, believe it or not, our relationship long ago, I wouldn't say it was saved by, but one of the mechanisms we used in saving our relationship when it was the use of a calendar. And the calendar, long ago, we used pens, black pens and red pens, put X's and check marks on the days that we got through without a rupture. And so as we charted that, the charting itself increased our capacity for containment. Because you run around every day, you don't know you're stepping on people's toes, but if there's a signaling device, then you become more careful how you step. So now we have a calendar which is formally made, and in fact, it's available on our website for sale, called the Zero Negativity Calendar.
And so, like when I'm saying, "Oh, Harville, that shirt looks awful on you. Put on the green one," and he goes, "Ouch," and I go, "Oh, I had no idea."
Yeah.
Then I learn quickly
you
that
just negated my taste.
He would rather pick his own clothes. So it helps me learn how I land negatively with him, instead of you have to pay consultants to come in and dress. People pay a lot, $200 an hour.
But you also have to pay consultants to tell you how you're coming across. With your lovely technique, you're able to get instant feedback, like instant karma, but it's being done in a way that's not damaging.
Right. So we have these stickers that we call them frowny faces and smiley faces.
So cute.
And a reset button. So each day, and we don't rate each other, we rate the relationship. So at the end of each day, we check, did our relationship get a frowny face today, which means one of us put the other one down. And that's what we mean by negativity, is simply a put down. It doesn't mean you can't have negative feelings. It means you don't
act on it in a negative and act out on the negative feeling.
Right. Mm-hmm. The other person does not become an object of your negativity. And if our relationship got a frowny face, then we do the repair process. And we check, well, what was that? We go into curiosity and not judgment. And so what was it that I did, or what was it? And then if we repair it using a repair procedure, which may be as simple as an apology, or it may take a full conversation. Then we put a reset button over the frowny face. So it's a kind of fun keeping in touch with the tone of our relationship on a daily basis. And then we want to keep the weeds out, so we get the negativity out. But we also have found that you can't just take out the negative. You really have to amp up positive energy, like so much.
Yes.
Do those neural chemicals of endorphins and dopamine. So we do the 3 appreciations then each day, and we work to never repeat an appreciation, so that we have to work every day to see something new about our partner that day that we appreciated.
That is great, because if you do the same thing, then it loses its oomph, then you don't get that chemical jolt.
Right.
Really smart. You guys, we have 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure everybody has a chance to know about your latest book project, to know about how to find you. So I give you, well, now it's 2 minutes. I want to make sure everybody knows all this, okay?
Okay, so website is harvilleandhelen.com, and you go there and you go into our world of zero negativity, safe conversations, getting the love you want, and everything. So that's the main thing. Our most recent book project was a book that Helen produced called Making Marriage Simple, and that's out now in the bookstores. And then our backup sort of mega book project is we're working on our professional text, but that won't be available for a while.
And Helen, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I don't think so, except it's been a delight.
Yeah, it has been. And maybe people don't know, but we do 4 big workshops a year, at 2 at Omega and 2 at Kripalu, but they're available on the website.
And we do 2 at our home. That's just for 9 or 10 couples, and those you can learn about on the website as well.
Yeah.
You don't live very far from me, and I hope that we'll be able to stay in touch, because I really have such a feeling of affection for both of you. I just really loved you from the minute I met you.
Oh, and and thank you. This has been a delightful engagement with you.
Really wonderful. And I hope that you'll know my door is always open to you as well. I'd love you to come back. You're my favorite guests, and I'm telling you, I've had all the biggest and the best guests on the show, and I am sorry to be such a fickle person, but you're my favorite. I just love you guys. So my door is open anytime you want to promote something, a new project, a new book, just let me know. Just call me, and you'll just come back on, okay?
Well, and I want to say my sister Swanee is coming for Christmas on next Monday, and your book is under the Christmas tree for her. So that's a little promotion for your book.
Yeah, that's so generous, so sweet. And Jean says thank you, too. So I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to say so long, and that's all I have for you now, and ask Dr. Love. Remember,